you know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories every time one of these things dies. But I, you know, I can't call it. I don't think I'm important enough, to be honest with you, uh, for these folks to even want to get rid of me. So I have no idea what's going on. So, oh, Delaney in the house. Yeah, I was gonna do the little breakdown on Margaret Sanger, and her racism. I don't know if I should do it or not. All right. Type 1 if you want to hear about Margaret Sanger's racist past, or type 2 if you want me to just do a 15-minute Ask Me Anything. It did get shut down, but I don't believe that the shutdown was YouTube's fault. I don't believe, like I said, I don't think I'm really big enough for them to want to censor me, to be honest with you. So, okay, good. It looks like people want to do a 15-minute Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to put the clock on here. And I'll put 15 minutes on the clock, and you can literally ask me anything, and I will literally do my best to try to answer it. Oh, my buddy Revo. Hey, Revo. Actually, I don't know if I should do that, but I got a friend in here. It's good to see you, buddy. I was pretty disappointed about yesterday, but thank you for understanding. I'm without my partner in crime right now because, as I've been saying, we've got a couple weeks left, and then we're a couple days left. She had a bunch of contractions in the last 2 days. You know, when she stands up, like, this is a little bit too much information, but like for Reza, she did most of the labor on her feet and let gravity. I got to tell you, like, I'm there as a support, and I've been through a couple of those bursts, but the way that she was, I was like, it was like I was irrelevant, and I wasn't. I was there for support, and she's very grateful for it, but she was so dialed in. She was so focused and dialed in, and she was in such control of the situation from start to finish. It was just, it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen, like, of like determination and endurance and the ability to absorb that pain and not lose your mind. Like, it's just, and the ability to focus and tune everything out. It was just her, God, and the baby. Like I said, I've been through a lot of births, and they're all amazing and miracles, but that was like unbelievable. But anyway, her strategy, you know, has been to let gravity do a lot of the work for her. And she was on her feet a lot the last couple days, and she started contracting. And then it was 2 days ago, and then yesterday it was like one after the other, after the other, after the other. She actually went up and packed her bags. Like, I packed my go bag. My go bag isn't packed yet, but she went up and packed. Like, that's how bad it was. So, so it's coming around the corner. If you are a praying person, please keep praying, because it's around the corner. Did you see Kanye talk about more black kids were aborted than born in New York on Tucker? Yeah. 2015 and 2016, to be completely accurate. The amount of abortions in the black community in New York City outstripped the amount of abortions done the amount of births in New York City. Yeah, I did see Kanye talk about that. I've talked about it a bunch of times, and all the well-meaning, non-racist white liberals, they don't respond. They never do. And how can they? What are they going to say? Actually, I had one very non-racist, very loving white liberal say, "Well, there's still black people around, so." I was like, yeah, there's still Jews around. That little incident in Germany, no big deal. We continue. Somebody asked me a question. I have 2 reasons to celebrate my birthday. No, tell me. Thoughts on the Biden weed thing? Yeah, the Biden weed thing. I was actually celebrating, and then my man. If you guys aren't following him, he's like Jimmy Dore leftist on Twitter. You really should follow him because dude it's Applejack in here, but dude is he's on his shit, and he's the only person of color I've ever seen go after Nina Turner, which. When you look at Nina Turner and what she's done, and I'm not talking about her taking a show on TYT, I'm talking about all the other shit. When you look at Nina Turner and all that, she's got some issues. So anyway, follow Applejack. It's Jimmy Dore leftist. Honestly, one of the best in my opinion. But so here's what he wrote to me about. He texted me about Biden. According to the White House, there are no inmates in federal prison solely on simple marijuana use. So this pardon effectively helps nobody. Okay. It's just like the student loan thing where it's like, yeah, we're getting student loans. And actually a person that I know that that we care about very deeply got, I think, $11,000 forgiven or something like that. Well, now the Republicans are suing whatever. So anyway, there's Applejack's link. I got to make him a mod so that you can click on it. I think he's already a mod. But you should definitely subscribe to Applejack. He also has a clothing line, but we'll talk about that another time. So I was born in the, I was part of the Just Say No generation, Delaney and the rest of you beautiful people. Hey, Rip in the house. Hey, Rip, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, so the whole weed thing, like, it's crazy to me. I hope Biden does the right thing. But the fact of the matter is Joe Biden has real animus to weed smokers. I mean, he fired people. Like one of the first things that he did when he came into office, he fired people who admitted to smoking weed in their background or whatever. He fired them. So he is not on the team. So anyway, on my birthday on the 31st of this month, I'll turn 29. I will also be 10 years of no self-harming. Holy shit. That is a really good, that's a good milestone. It really is. As a person who has also dealt with self-harm, I definitely see the validity in that. That's badass. Abortion is okay because you're not compelled to reproduce. You got free will and such. Well, AT, that's just a... AT, you told me that Sori couldn't have an abortion. You told me 10 minutes ago Sori couldn't have one, and you said no. So why? I think AT, you should do a little bit more thinking about this topic, because it seems to me that you haven't developed a consistent ethic all the way through on it yet, and there's some inconsistency there. So I would say do a little bit more thinking on that topic, because what you said just contradicted what you said 10 minutes ago. Case by case. No. Well, what do you mean by case by case? Are you talking about an ectopic pregnancy, which is not an abortion? What are you talking about case by case? Perkinos asked me, you told me a while back you're reading Dolezal. What do you think of his book so far? Because you guys, it was actually you and I forgot who else, XBM. It was you and XBM, because you guys were talking about, I forgot what the technical theological term is. Is it divine personalism or something like that? I forgot what the terminology was. But I love the book, and I love that he has the doctrine of immutability. A lot of the like, for example, my definition of omnipotence is different from what most Christians would call omnipotence. And so when you're talking about theology proper, I think there are Aristotelian and Platonic ideas. Well, not ideas. I'll even go beyond that. Assumptions and presuppositions that we then attach to the divine being and says, if you don't have these attributes this way, then you're not talking about God. So, for example, God is omnipotent. My definition of that is not that God can do whatever he wants, or that God has no limitations, because he does have limitations. For example, the scripture says God cannot lie. And of course, the limitation there is constrained by his own nature, his own ontology. There's nothing external to God that motivates him or influences his action relative to lying. He can't lie, because if he were to do that, he would essentially be canceling himself out and canceling logic out, and that would be the end of existence in the first place. So my definition of omnipotence is that when God decides to do a thing, no one can stop him. So, you have, Daniel saying, who can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? So I think that's a positive biblical definition of what omnipotence actually is. But when you get Platonic and Aristotelian about it, then people start saying, can God make a stone so heavy he can't lift? And if God can't lie, that means he's not omnipotent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I was thinking about divine immutability, God changing his mind, those kinds of passages, God does seem affected by us. And as I said, he doesn't lie, but it does appear that he allows himself to fully throw himself into the story. Not that he's a pretender, and he's pretending because he knows how the end is going to be, but that he is an actual character in the story, and he allows himself to feel everything that the folks in the story feel. Because as a Christian idealist, I'm developing my thought process along with you, Bernardo Kastrup, and Don Hoffman. That's why I sent you that article. I'm like, what do you think about this? But I look at a lot of existence really as just a endogenous sort of event in the mind of God. And so God is telling this story, and that's what we call all of existence. And so when you see things like God regretted that he made man, et cetera, we immediately go Aristotelian and say, well, I mean, he already knew the end from the beginning. And so because of that, he's unaffected. He's not really emotionally affected and caused the flood. It's an anthropomorphic statement that's been used, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, when I would if you would talk to me and you asked me a very succinct theological question, or if I was in an actual moderated debate, I would answer that way. But in my own personal devotional life, I engage with God as if he's an actual person, and that he's affected by me, and that we're affected by each other. And so reading Dolezal's book, has been very enlightening for me. Me and Story actually we're going to be reading Dolezal's book after we get off of here. But that's kind of my take on the book at this point. I don't think it's due to Platonic and Aristotelian assumptions. Anselm of Canterbury, for example, is firmly in the Christian scholastic tradition and agrees that God cannot sin. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. I don't believe that God can sin. I haven't gotten enough into the Dolezal book to say that. But yeah, I like if you look at guys like Gottschalk, especially on the Western side of Christianity, there's that real sort of scholastic, almost hyper scholastic tradition. But I would contend, and let me know. Influenced by Aristotelian and Platonic thought. I was just watching an N.T. Wright interview talking about that. John obviously was influenced by, I'm forgetting the name, the Logos guy. How did that what's the guy's name that John drew from to get his Logos, the Logos concept? Anyway, I can't believe I forgot the guy's name. As if I remember Anselm and Gottschalk and forget about the Logos guy. No, not Rachel Dolezal. Philly Steve. No, that wasn't Rachel Dolezal. That was Philo. Yeah. Obviously, Philo. Obviously, John is influenced by Philo's thought process relative to logos, and Philo was influenced obviously by a combination of a lot of things, but Plato and Aristotle obviously shows up in his work as well. So well, I agree with you. There's that, especially like I said, on the Western side, that very academic and scholarly tradition. Anselm, Gottschalk, those guys. I agree, but I still think that those guys are rooted in that kind of thought to a degree, unless there's a stream of thought or an intellectual tradition that runs parallel with those ideas that isn't rooted in Aristotle and Plato, which obviously, if that were the case, then yeah. No, it wasn't about Rachel Dolezal. It was about a theological question that I've been ruminating on. That's what it's on. My question is to know your views on Marvel teaming up with Pfizer to make a comic only available in America about getting vaccinated. Get the fuck out of here. What? Okay, first of all, I am vaccinated, so is Soraya, so don't start with the anti-vax stuff. But as my friend DJ, now DJ and I, we have wars all the time. And DJ was on the opposite end of the vaccine stuff. And I tell DJ, look, bro, you know how I think, get me the data, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you're an idiot, blah, 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 blah. But, he's my man. He loves me. I love him. We're good. Then it came out that the CDC left out a giant chunk of data between 18 and 49. It's a pretty significant chunk. And it demonstrated that people between 18 and 49, if you were in relatively good health, you really truly didn't need the vaccine. As a matter of fact, the vaccine in that situation would be counterproductive. The CDC, we covered this on Middle America. The CDC said they didn't release it because they didn't want the public to get the wrong idea, and the public wasn't ready for that information. Okay. The minute that happened, I'm out. I don't need to believe all the conspiracy theories, but that's enough for me to say my buddy DJ was absolutely right. He was absolutely right in this particular situation. I was wrong. He was right. Now, all this stuff now about there's a comic coming out, your neighborhood vaccine man, all this other shit. That is, if you, I want to say this very carefully. If that actually happens in this country, and that doesn't set off some serious concerns, the efficacy of the vaccine, the necessity of it, boosters, blah, 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 is one thing, but a coordinated attack to censor information, and then on the other side to use the arts and entertainment, etc., to move people in a certain direction, is what happens when you are in a dictatorship. You censor the type of information you don't want spread, and then you obviously use the news and everything, but then you go to the arts and all these other things to get people to do that. Okay? The demonization of Kyrie Irving, the demonization of Aaron Rodgers. To this day, people still talking about Kyrie Irving like he's crazy, when the fact of the matter is he had no business getting vaccinated. He's a man in between 18 and 49 in peak physical condition. He didn't need to be vaccinated. He was right. New York was wrong. But instead of ESPN and all these other people adjusting, they refused to adjust and say we were wrong. I have no idea why people can't admit when they were wrong. I was wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of shit. I'll be wrong again. It's okay. That's why we have friends. That's why we have conversations. But I'm telling you, I don't know what the angle is. This is where the conspiracy theorists, like, they go off because they see that something is wrong. And I'm with you, but then when they start filling in the blanks about why people are doing what they're doing as if they know, I'm sorry, I've been into too many meetings with alphabet people to know that What you think, it has nothing to do with what actually the plan is. So that's my issue with conspiracy theorists. I don't. People who your default setting as an American should be to distrust the government. Like, we literally started out killing our governors. That's the Revolutionary War. That's not how every country on the planet began. Okay, the whole thing was, man, fuck the government, bro. That's the American spirit. So when the government, the CDC is doing all this stuff, like, it's on America to just trust them, number one. But number two, when they've been calling their pants down and prove that they're demonstrable liars, then it's your responsibility as an American to A, call that out, and B, become very circumspect about what they're telling you. So that's my opinion relative to the vaccination comic or whatever. That shit is insane to me. I do think that money is part of the equation, but I don't believe that I know, or that any of us in YouTube land knows, what the end game is. I don't believe we know that. When I was into that stuff, there was a lot of shit you'd see on the news. I'm like, holy, that has nothing to do with what we're. So that's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it. That's my opinion on it. Of course, my brother Dwayne, different. He has a different opinion. And that's okay. This is America. Mike goes, wait, I thought Trump was the dictator. Yeah. We got rid of Trump, and then we put the guy in office who authored and fought for the crime bill. But Trump is a fascist. Okay. All right. So look, I'm not an epidemiologist, so I can't tell you the minutia. All I'm telling you is that if you're between 18 and 49 and you're relatively healthy, you're not morbidly obese, and you don't have any respiratory issues, me personally, I would not get vaccinated. None of my kids are vaccinated. I don't have any boosters. I'm not taking any. I mean, the irony of this whole thing is when COVID really took off, they shut down the gym, and now we know that the gym is the best place for people. But anyway, so yeah, I think at minimum we should be really, really skeptical. We should be very, very skeptical when our government starts doing shit like that for our own good. Holy shit! Look at this, guys. I'm gonna show you guys this comic. This can. We're living in the fucking. I swear, if I still believed in all that end time stuff, I would be backing down the hatches right now if I still believed in all that Left Behind stuff. But look at this bullshit, guys. We gotta put Applejack on the thing for look at this fucking bullshit. Your friendly neighborhood Pfizer man, U.S. pharma giant partners with Marvel Comics to create comic that urges people to get their COVID vaccine and be an everyday hero. Look at the date, 6 October 2022. So this is recent. My man Applejack, like, he has his receipts. Like, he doesn't play. Me and him are like, it's the same mind. Where are the receipts? I want to see that shit. And he sent that to me without me even asking for it. So there it is, guys. Do what you will with that. Okay? Do what you will with that. Me personally, I would not vaccinate my children. I am not getting boosted. And if I had to do it over again, I would not get vaccinated. But that's me personally. I'm not telling you what to do. It still gets me that saying coronavirus came from a lab is labeled a conspiracy theory when there's literally right in front of the street where it happened labeled coronavirus. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, I'm not a fan of like the marginalization of conspiracy theories or whatever. Like, it depends on what you mean. If you mean by conspiracy theory, the government is lying to us, they're not being forthright, and they have other agendas that are not necessarily in the best interest for the populace at large, but in the best interest of the empire expansion or whatever, then I'm 100% with you. Where it goes off the rails is when the conspiracist starts claiming they know why everything is happening and they have specific dates and all the rest of it. That's where it's like you're in la la land. These people, trust me, are the most sophisticated thinkers ever. Ever. And it's because they have the accumulation of history, which gives them a lot of case studies, examples. And when you marry that to technology, I'm particularly talking about the United States. People have no idea. Trust me, your friend in the basement has no fucking clue what's really going on. I'm a semi-informed person. I was in certain circles, and once you're out, you're out. You have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. I just know that it's not good, and I don't trust them. But if you start going into these long soliloquies with all this detail about what's going to happen, I don't really have a lot of time for you. And that was one of the reasons why DJ was one of the few people that disagreed with the vaccine that I kept going with, because he would say general things like money and things like that, which we all know, but he wouldn't get into all these elaborate whatever, right? He would just say, look, man, there's no way that this is this. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Look at what this other doctor is saying, yada, yada, yada. This is all for money. I think the money thing is completely oversimplistic, but he never went off and said, at 9:30, this is going to happen on this day, blah, blah, blah. I had a friend that I love very dearly. And during the entire, January 6th, lead up to January 6th and everything like that, she was telling me play-by-plays and all this detail, blah, blah, blah. And she really thought that Pelosi and all those people were going to get marched out in handcuffs and all the rest of it. Like, shit was insane. Like, she really, she had all this detail. She's like, I've got an insider, blah, blah, blah. And I'm laughing. I'm like, you have an insider. I don't. I knew some of these people. They don't talk to me. It's like I fell off the fucking line. I don't talk to them either. But you know. I promise you don't know. You don't know. You don't know why they're doing it. But if you don't trust your government, and if you think something is really shady, then 9 times out of 10, you are probably right. But the minute people start telling you that they know all the details and all the secret machinations and all the reasons and all the rest of it, trust me, you can just write that person off. They have no idea what they're talking about. All right, I got room for one more question, and then I got to go because I missed Sorry, and we have a book. I wonder if Perkinos is still in here, because I wanted to continue that discussion. Where'd you go, buddy? A good example is Trinitarian theology. Christians added ideas of hypostasis and ousia, so Christians made Plato and Aristotle conform to the Bible rather than make the Bible conform to Plato and Aristotle. Yes. That's good. They were definitely influenced by Plato and Aristotle, but Christian Platonism and scholastics never uncritically simply accepted Plato and Aristotle. Okay. Yep. Okay. I agree with that. So where do you think these omnis and all these other ideas came from your view? One more theology question. Do you believe that God passively leaves the reprobate in their fall? Do you believe God actively works unbelief in the heart of the reprobate? No, I'm an infralapsarian. Perk, I'm an infralapsarian. So no, I believe that God passively passes over the reprobate. But at the same time, I'm not even sure that I believe in eternal reprobation. I'm not sure that I believe that. I was just talking to Soraya about Romans 9 versus Romans 11, where the interlocutor says to Paul, well, then why does God so blame us for who resists his will? And Paul responds by saying, well, who are you, oh man, the potter, clay, blah, 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 blah. So when Paul is confronted with this sort of mystery of concurrence, where God decrees the destruction of Pharaoh and simultaneously hold Pharaoh responsible for his sin that led to his destruction, the mystery of the seeming contradiction paradox of concurrence, when the interlocutor challenges him, he doesn't answer it directly. He follows it up with a question. Whereas, if you look earlier in Romans 9, when it talks about, has God's plan fail, and then Paul says certainly not, or he says may it never be. So that the interlocutor asks a question, and Paul responds to the question explicitly. He says no. Same thing. Shall we continue to sin so that grace may abound, as we are so slanderously accused of saying their condemnation is just? Again, he responds in an explicit negative fashion. But when this guy says, why does God so blame us who resist his will? He doesn't respond with a direct answer. He says, well, who are you to question God? And so I interpret that as he has reached the end of his intellectual ability to harmonize, and God hasn't given Paul any extra revelation to really satisfactorily answer the question. But then you get to Romans 11, and Paul says that God has confined all to disobedience so that he might have mercy on all, which again is another paradox and contradiction. And there Paul says, oh, the depths and the wisdom and the knowledge of God, how great his thoughts are, and whatever. And the point of all that is to say, when God is talking about reprobation in Romans 9, Paul doesn't break out in worship, and he doesn't really explain it and harmonize it very well. But when you get to another mystery in Romans 11, where Paul says God has consigned all to disobedience, so he had mercy on all, he erupts in praise. And so I know the Calvinist way of interpreting the all there, right? The all is mercy on all who are saved or whatever. But the first all is all humanity, and now the second of all is supposed to be only the elect. I'm not sure that that's necessarily true. If you had a purgation period in hell per se, both of those passages could be harmonized, right? Because you could still say this guy's a vessel of destruction, vessel of wrath prepared for destruction, and that event of the wrath of God and the destruction happen, and then after they've absorbed that, then God can show them mercy and then bring them home. I'm not saying that that's my position. I'm saying everything is on the table for me right now. So traditionally, I would answer that question as an infralapsarian currently. But again, I'm not certain that I even believe in complete and total divine reprobation. Thoughts on the Kanye interview? I have not watched the Kanye interview yet. Oh, I Look at News is here. Shout out to him. I haven't looked at the Kanye interview yet, but DJ sent it to me, so I will look at it. We'll probably do a watch along on the Kanye interview. But it is, I heard the little clip he said abortion, which is obviously absolutely true. Look, the only time that you're going to see a Negro on Fox News is if it's Kanye, Thomas Sowell, or Candace Owens. Okay, so you got to take that into account anytime you see a big interview like that. They're not going to get LeBron on there. They're not going to get Kyrie on there. They're going to get certain folks, and you just have to understand that. I think Kanye understands that, but he also has a message that he wants to put out there. So there you go. Do you believe our Creator sees us as his people anymore? Yes, I'm a father, and the ultimate revelation of God is that he is a father. And so I just think that it's impossible for a father to say, yeah, forget those people. So yeah, look, the scripture shows us a God who I have held my hands open all day to a gainsaying people, and they wouldn't come to me. It's constantly in the scripture where God says, don't be like the horse and the mule that has to have a bit and bridle in its mouth, or otherwise it won't come to you. Come to me, and I will teach you. I'll keep my eye on you. I'll show you the way. That's one of my favorite Psalms. And I get that from God a lot. Would you just stop putting me in situations where I got to put a bit and bridle in your mouth? Can you stop acting like an animal, act like an image bearer of God, and let's talk, huh? And I think that's a lot of God's attitude to a lot of us, is that we create our own misery at times, and God allows that misery in hopes that it'll keep us next to him, in much the same way as I'm walking down the street with Orion and I hold his hand and I put him on the inside of the sidewalk and I threaten him. I say, if you let go of my hand, you go into that street, those cars are going to hurt you. That's a threat. But I think everybody would say, well, that's a good thing to do as a parent. So when you see things like the wrath of God or God threatening people and all the rest of it, it's just he wants you on the right side of the street with your hand in his hand. That's all. That's all he's gunning for. And as a parent, that's all you really want. My Orion, Soraya put up Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh, a picture up in his room, and he came to me. I was here working on another business or whatever. By the way, guys, if you know anybody that needs baby formula, our baby formula, FDA approved, got it through U.S. Customs. It's on its way to Amazon right now. Send me an email. I'll probably, if you hear about it from here, I'll give you a 5% discount. In my view, it's top-notch formula. Our source is from Germany, and those guys have ridiculously insane standards that Americans do not have, which is one of the things that precipitated the formula crisis in the first place. Do you see the influx of Satanism in the world? No, I don't see an influx of Satanism in the world, actually. I was having this conversation with with an ex-friend. I was never really friends with this person, to be honest with you. And she was saying, Christianity's dying in America, blah, 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 dying. And she showed me this article, and it was Christianity's declining in America. So I responded. I gave her an article that said by 2030, China will be a Christian country. I show another article about the influx of Christianity in the Muslim world, so much so that the sheikhs and the rest of them are holding conferences and meetings about how to deal with this Christianity thing. I personally know people that are in bad areas doing mission work that are crushing it. I do not see the influx of Satanism. Where is the Church of Philadelphia? The Church of Philadelphia was a church in the first century that was part of the Roman Empire. Revelation was written directly to those churches at that time period, and the majority of what you see in Revelation is relevant to those people in that time period. Do you see the attack on men in this country? Do you think it's because they see God's image in men? Well, women are image bearers of God just as much as men are, according to Genesis 1. So I don't think that. What I think is happening with men in this country, and I'm assuming you're talking about the toxic masculinity stuff, etc., etc. I do think that a certain template of man is being, that there are elements in this country that want to pressure men to not be, not carry the distinctives of what makes men separate from women. So for example, we're naturally more aggressive. We, by nature, are take more risks than women. Women are generally more risk averse than we are, which was one of the reasons why insurance premiums are different between men and women. Even some car insurance companies, they will make a dichotomy between men and women because, again, a dude is a more risky driver. And I saw a report that said that those things should be discouraged. The risk taking, the ambition, the competitive spirit, all those things. Those were also classified as toxic traits. And I don't think it's because, they're image bearers of God, so we want to get rid of them. What I actually think is, and this is fascinating, I think what is actually happening is, well, we really stepped into it this time. I think really what's happening is that it's happening on the other side. You'll notice in the abortion discussion, we're no longer talking about women's rights. We're talking about pregnant persons. So you can't say women are pregnant anymore. You have to say pregnant persons because men can be pregnant. Women can get people pregnant. And so what I think is happening is that you have a very small group of people who have a very massive influence, and they're trying to convince us that there really are no real biological and semi-ontological variances between male and female. Those are just societal sort of influences. And so if we take away the societal influences, then everybody will see that there really is no difference between men and women. And so that's why we're supposed to say, oh yeah, you know, like this guy, you know, I forgot the swimmer's name. You know, he was a dude, and he was a, you know, middle of the pack guy in the Division I swim team. And then he didn't even transition. He just identified as a woman, and then he crushed everybody. Lia Thompson just crushed everybody, destroyed everybody. And we're supposed to look at that and say, well, you know, hey, she won that one. And so I think that really is at the core of it. Is there's an ideology that wants to tell us that there are no real distinctions between, and I understand why. It's because gay people and trans people have been brutally and mercilessly attacked for their entire existence in this country. It's still happening. And so saying, hey, we're all the same, I think is a good spirit. That's right. We are all the same. But I think where it falls off the rail is sameness and complete identical are not the same things. You have fraternal twins, right? And you have identical twins. Well, they're still twins, but they're not identical. So men and women are the same in that they carry the same value. You know, my Latin King friends, actually, I was reading some of the rules when I was in New York City for Latin Kings, and they actually said the Latin Queen is the pinnacle of society. And so the gang was around that, and we're going to war, we're killing, we're dying if you disrespect a Latin woman. And so there are certain cultures that actually put the woman a little bit above the man in value. And I'm kind of there, to be honest with you. I was talking to, you know, one of my daughters was struggling with this, the whole concept that women are weak and that men are, you know, she gets into an altercation with a dude 9.5 times out of 10, she's going to lose because men are generally stronger. And I said, sweetheart, if Joe Biden was, you know, taking a walk through the mall, you think he'd be walking by himself? She said, well, no. She said, well, he'd have security, right? And they'd have guns. I said, okay. Do you think that those guys would be stronger or weaker than Biden? She goes, well, I mean, he would be stronger. They'd be stronger, obviously. You think they'd have weapons? Yeah, they'd have weapons. I'd say, okay. So Biden is weaponless and he's weaker than all those people around him. But who's the most important person there? She said, well, Biden would. And I'm like, okay. And she said, well, yeah, those strong guys are. So should Biden feel bad that he's not as strong as his security guards? And she says, no, like those guys trained. They got big and they learned how to shoot so that they could protect Biden because he's the important one. And then she goes, oh, and I said, yeah, like God gave men that strength and that aggression because we're doing security detail for y'all. You guys are the stars. And that's my perspective. So I do believe that women are ontologically equivalent to men, but as far as their value and importance, in sort of the roles in society, I believe that they should be, that they occupy that kind of lane that the president would occupy, and that's why we're stronger. We're the security guards to protect her against the elements, animals, and evil people, and so that's why the boy will jump off the roof or stack a bunch of books and then ride his bike over and take all these risks and scab up his knees, and the girls would never do it. It's because they're being trained, whether by biology or by God, to be that kind of person. And the job of another man is to get that boy and teach him how to channel that aggression, and teach him how to channel the ambition, and teach him how to channel the capacity for violence in such a way as to say, you have ambition so that you can be a provider, because it's a fucking jungle out there for these women. Okay? You need to be able to provide for that woman and for that child. You're aggressive because there are real threats in the world, man. There are real threats in the world. And so you have to meet that with a certain degree of aggression. And there is a degree to which you need to be able to have a switch where you can apply some violence. Because your role is to be a house band. You're a husband. You're a band around the house. You're a protector. You're a provider. The real stars are the wife and the child. And so when we see a culture that are starting to try to blur those lines, I think that that entire enterprise is doomed to fail. Whether you take an evolutionary perspective or a biblical perspective, I think that is a worldview that is impossible to maintain in a society. Furthermore, I keep trying to explain to people, I'm a non-lethalist, meaning I don't believe we should kill anyone, even in self-defense or defense of others. Jesus used violence when the Roman soldiers came to pick him up, because according to Roman law, all those boys should have been arrested. But Jesus knocked everybody on their ass, and then he said, since you're coming for me, take me and let these go. Jesus applied the exact amount of violence to secure the people he was taking care of and to protect evil people from themselves. And he didn't put 1 ounce of pressure more than was necessary to accomplish that goal. And so that is the paradigm I use to explain to my boys how to use violence. You use violence as an absolute last-ditch effort to protect the people that you're responsible for, but also to protect the evil person from himself. And you use just enough violence to accomplish that goal and no more. So you get somebody in an arm bar and they say, okay, and the girl is able to get to safety. You don't break the guy's arm. You don't choke the guy out unconscious. You don't, there's a lot of shit, a lot of mistakes that were made, in my life, as far as not being taught to not exceed the limits. You even see in the Quran, Allah does not love those who exceed the limits. I was never taught that there were limits. And so that's why the whole toxic masculinity thing, I do believe there's a version of masculinity that's toxic. The person I was in New York City was a toxic person. I was a bad person. There is a way to be a man and apply those principles in a wrong way that's toxic, that's not life-giving, that is life-ending. And so obviously I wish that, not being able to grow up with my dad, no disrespect to him, he had his own situation. That's one of the biggest sort of things I look back at and wish that I had somebody to tell me how to manage violence well. So that's my explanation on pacifism. And again, DJ, there is what Jesus tells us to do, and then what we're capable of doing based on our growth as Christians, etc. So I would tell you to be very, very careful, because sometimes you talk about this stuff like Jesus is just some well-meaning hippie who doesn't understand how the world is supposed to work. And so if you're saying you're a follower of Jesus, DJ, you have to take his stance on nonviolence seriously. I understand you have a Second Amendment, but the Bible and the Constitution are not equivalent documents from a Christian perspective. So come to whatever conclusion you want about what's practical or whatever, but at some level you have to take what Jesus says seriously, and there is no way to justify lethal violence from a Jesus following worldview. It's literally impossible. You cannot justify. I've had moderated debates about it. And they always do horribly. And it's not because I'm a good debater. It's because it's impossible. This American understanding of how to apply violence and killing people is not, it's impossible to harmonize with the New Testament. It's just, I'm sorry, it's impossible to harmonize. Doug, there have been Christians for millennia that have been in, quote, real situations. Do you think that Jesus, when he was telling us this stuff, wasn't thinking about real situations? DJ, do you understand Jesus's seats in Laban? I don't think you understand the time period that Jesus was in. You had Romans who could jam you up, crucify you, rape your wife, all types of crazy shit. And then on top of that, you had tax collectors who were of your own people, but were working for the Romans that were just G'ing you, taking all the money that you... There was so much temptation for violence. One of the 12 disciples, his name was Simon the Zealot. And the term zealot isn't necessarily talking about his religious affiliation. That was the name of a jihadist group at the time. These guys were jihadists in the same way that you see in Palestine versus Israel. So when Jesus is talking about turn the other cheek, they were not living in this nice, like, utopian society. After you live in a society that has been so influenced by Jesus and the Christian gospel that you can walk down the street and not die. But that's not the time. So it was in that dangerous context full of violence and the temptations to be violent that Jesus said, don't kill anyone. So when you say, oh, the real world, it's like I'm quoting Jesus, and the implication of what you're saying is, well, that's not how things work in the real world. I'm sorry. I've seen it. There was a giant racial gang war about to kick off because these Somali dudes jumped on these two white people and beat the hell out of this woman. She was walking around with a giant eye jammy, and them folks were rightly upset. And they were tooling up. We were having church outside. I saw these dudes. This guy's got a knife. This guy's got a box cutter. They're all meeting up there. I told Sori, I said, listen, take everybody inside into the church. I got to go take care of something. So we got all the kids cleared out. And then I went up there and I found the leader of the gang who was a Nazi. The guy was a little Nazi, you know. And I said, look, man. I said, you can't do this. God has put you in charge of all these people. And he's going to hold you personally responsible for what happens in the next 10 minutes. He told you to turn the other cheek. Of course, there's a guy that's like, shut the fuck up, preacher. Ain't nobody in church right now. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, he was mad. I mean, they wanted to get bloody. I understand. I just looked at the guy. I looked at the leader and I said, listen, you know what's going to happen. You're going to go out there and take care of business, and then they're going to catch this guy doesn't know what he's doing. This guy's never been in a fight in his life. They're going to catch that guy by himself, and it's going to be your fault. On top of that, you see all these beautiful people in the park. You're about to traumatize these kids. God's going to hold you accountable. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. You have to not do this. Guy looks at me and says, if you'll go down there and talk with them with me, I won't do anything. So we went down there. We talked it out. They shook it out, and we had peace. So this is not, oh, Jesus is giving us some really nice ideas. This is shit that works in the real world. It does work in the real world. And you know what happened, DJ, to be honest with you? Sori and I got married. We left that whole situation. I'm trying to focus on a relationship. I was completely burnt out, to be honest with you. And people started dropping like flies, bro. And it happened with the same two groups of people. People started dying down here. So, and obviously, I have to deal with that, right, for the rest of my life. Because when we were down there, we stopped it from happening. We left, and then a year later, Donnie's dead. And then this guy's dead. And all the rest of it. And so, for me, I've seen the Sermon on the Mount work in real time. I've seen it work. And I also see what happens when people do the practical thing that's supposed to happen in the real world. People die. They die. So the only ultimate solution is Jesus's way. It's not It's not a nice ideal. It's not you want to be a super Christian. It's not a suggestion for advanced Christians. It is the Constitution for the New World. The Sermon on the Mount is the Constitution for the New World, DJ. And so I want to challenge you to take what Jesus says seriously and stop with this arrogant, prideful notion that Jesus was just speaking idealistically, but you know how shit's supposed to go in the real world. Ridiculous. Christianity is a non-violent religion. Gandhi seems to have understood nonviolence better than most Christians, but some seem to put Malcolm on a higher pedestal than MLK. Yeah, I'm Malcolm. I'm Malcolm all the way. I'm not a fan of MLK at all. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but Malcolm threatened violence, but he never killed anyone. He said, you fuck with us, we're going to defend ourselves by any means necessary. You got the shotgun out there and he's looking out the window. Malcolm never killed anyone. If you look at the missionaries to the Aka Indians, so these Aka Indians showed up and there was a miscommunication and these guys had spears and so they brandished their spears. Well, the missionaries had guns and they took the guns and fired them in the air because they were trying to scare them off. And they got speared to death, all three of them. They all died. They had loaded weapons, and they all died. And then a month later, the children and the women of these three martyrs came down there and started preaching to those people. Whole fucking tribe converted. And the killer, one of the killers, and the son of one of the killed are best friends to this day. So what Jesus is calling us to is ridiculous. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. My inclination is to apply violence. I mean, you know, DJ and I are friends outside of this stuff, so I've shared certain things with him. And I think a lot of people put two and two together about, you know, my background, things of that nature. So DJ knows what he's talking about when we're talking about applied violence. My only concern, yeah, of course, I'm trying to get us to recognize how you and I might easily, where I am right now, I know for a fact that I would fail because I've been tested. When like God has showed me this. Like when I'm if it's about me, people attacking, I've been outside Planned Parenthood, I've been spit on, people attack me, people threaten my life, I'm good. The situation happened with my daughter. Not a Planned Parenthood, completely different situation. Years later, happened 2 years ago, happened with my daughter. And I got the keys and I'm like, I'm gonna find this guy right now. And she goes, hey, wait a second, you got to figure out what's going on. So I stopped because Sori's my ace. So I was like, what do I need to know? So she tried to say something. I said, all right, I got in the car and I went and found the dude at his place of work. So I'm saying that to say, even though what I just said about the Sermon on the Mount, and I said I went in there and I stopped that gang war and all the rest of it, I don't want people to think that, oh yeah, he's really applying this shit. Because as soon as it became about my daughter, I went back to, you know, the wrong way of handling situations. So I don't want anybody to sit here and be like, wow, this guy's he's Gandhi. No. When it comes to me, I'm okay. But when it comes to something happened with my son. Same thing. Thankfully, I didn't find the guy. But I didn't find the dude, but it was one of those, you know, in New York when one of your friends dies or something like that, and you're looking for the people, but it gets to the point where like you don't even care, and somebody's got to pay for it. So it's either you, your friend, your cousin. Even your cousin has nothing to do with it. Somebody's gonna feel what I'm feeling right now, right? And so something happened to my son a couple summers ago, and I was in that mode, man. And my son, he was 15, 14 at the time. He's like, Father, stop. This guy, there's this big dude. And I'm like, excellent. This is a big guy. Great. So I went out and my son was like, He has nothing to do with it. Calm down, calm down, calm. Like my son is like discipling me and like trying to talk me off the ledge. I got in the car and I'm driving, like looking around. I'm like, is it that guy, that guy, that guy? I was completely out of my mind. And God was like, okay, this is where you are. Like you're not there yet. I had thought, because I had that experience in the park and because I did good with people attacking me and things like that, I thought that I had made it. But then it came to my kids and God was like, this is where you're at. You still have a lot of that bullshit inside of you, bro. And so I agree. We're definitely, yeah, DJ. I mean, we definitely fail at it. My family is definitely my family and people, men who hurt little kids. Like, I'm not good at it. You know what I'm saying? So, do you remember how angry I used to be before Restore and I became friends? You were a little chippy. Chippy is what we called it. We used to call it back in the day. But I never thought like you were out of the. I felt like, at the time, the things that you were saying, it made sense, and I understood why you had some animosity. So I understand that. Gandhi was distressed when all the men ran off when a village was attacked, and they left the women to bear the brunt of an attack on the village in the name of nonviolence. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I mean, right? Like that's why I'm a non-lethalist. I do believe that in extreme measures you need to apply a certain degree of violence to protect the innocent, but that you should treat the aggressor as you would treat your own son. So if my son broke into a house and was trying to, God forbid, commit an armed robbery, I would do everything I could possibly to disarm him, but and stop him, but only that. I wouldn't go and kill him and say, "Oh, play stupid games, win stupid prizes." But I wouldn't do that to my son. So that's one of the things that one of the paradigms that God has given me is like love your neighbor as yourself. And then there's love your neighbor as you love your son. And that is what's fascinating? That's a command that God did not command us to do, but that he himself followed, right? Because he gave us Jesus, right? And any parent knows, fine, take me, chop me to shreds, but leave my son alone. And so God, because he understands our weakness, only commands us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. But he told me one time, what if you had to love your neighbor the way you love your son? And I think that's too much of a responsibility to put on any human being. And that's something that only God can do 100% of the time. Because when people talk about the trolley dilemma and all the rest of it, there's no dilemma for me. I would let the whole world die. I'd let the whole world die to save one of my kids, and I got 7 of them. I love all of you, but all of you guys would die. All of you would go if it was between my son and everybody else. So my point is, love your neighbor as you love your son is a high bar. But when I think about a home invasion or what do we do with a guy who's, whatever, I say, yep, we need to apply some violence, but just enough to protect the innocent and protect the guilty from himself. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Much love to all you guys. I said 15 minutes, but it's been an hour, and somebody prophesied it would be 45 minutes. Much love to everybody. Shout out to Applejack. Get a gun, Vin. Yeah. We'll probably go out to the range one day, DJ. Probably go to the range one day. I know there's a guy here. There's a guy here that he's on the channel, but he's got a little range at his house. Shout out to Mike. Yeah, I got guns already, DJ. I mean, a little guy like you, like I understand, but I mean, I got Applejack. Shout out to Mike. Obviously, shout out to baby sister Michelle. Um, Shout out to Perkinos. Um, all my beautiful people. Obviously, Applejack. I love you guys. I'm 6'3", 235. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Well, maybe we could roll then. Seeing as how I'm so soft and I'm such a pacifist, maybe we should do some jujitsu sessions. Maybe we should televise it. Maybe we should live stream a jujitsu session because you're 6'3". I'm nothing close to that. So maybe we should do that. Yeah, Applejack, you wanted them. You wanted them. You wanted them dudes. You wanted them dudes. Oh, you got a 32-inch vert. Yeah. Okay, yeah, do that shit. Do it. I was honestly though, if you've ever done jujitsu, you realize that it's not about being tough at all. It's what I love about jujitsu is it's live action physical chess, and I love that feeling of panic when you've made a mistake and somebody's on you and they're about to mount you and like you're running out of options and you have to make, I had an instructor in another world and he talked about maintain the quiet, Vincent. He was talking about your head. He said when you're in a bad situation, you got to find the quiet and maintain it. And so jujitsu is really instrumental to that kind of, mentality. Because when you get in trouble and you start panicking, you cannot panic, not even on a theoretical level, because you start panicking, your heart rate goes up, you're breathing, you aspirate. It's terrible. So it's this real mind body meld, and I have to engage so many parts of your being to make shit work and to remain calm under pressure, and to think in real time about finding real solutions as somebody's trying to hurt you, which obviously leads to benefits in other theaters, etc. So I have a gun in my hand in my picture. If you go on a YouTube channel, you can see it better. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's really, to Ian's point, it's really not about being an alpha male or a tough guy. It's about, can you discipline your mind and find a way to get your mind and your body to work together? And can you have a plan and manifest that plan in the material world live as it's happening? And so that is a it's a real spiritual experience, to be honest with you, because like I said, your entire being is engaged if you listen well enough. You have to dedicate your life to this discipline when weapons of war dictate not much Mortal Kombat going on there. Yeah. Did we already cover nuclear war? No, we did not cover nuclear war yet. I was laughing at the Nord Stream 2 thing because I was thinking about my rap. Europe can't buy from Russia, so gas payments go to Exxon and Chevron, make cash. Makes sense. And now Nord Stream 2 just strangely got, deleted, whatever. So, yeah, really interesting stuff. And we can cover nuclear war, inshallah. All right, I got to get out of here, guys. I love you guys very much. I am going to go hang out with my bride now. I'll probably take a shower and wash my nasty body. Thank you guys for hanging out. I didn't realize how much I missed it. I missed you guys. We will be back on the regular channel soon. Hopefully her contractions get us a baby in 2 or 3 days. We had a really badass lineup a couple days ago, man, that I'm like, fuck. I really, really wanted to do that thing, but we got a 9-songer coming up for you beautiful people. At least 9 songs. So that's coming down the pike soon. I did miss you guys. Glad for the conversation. As Teddy's saying, God be with you guys. Much love to Rip, man, text me once in a while, bro. Text me once in a while. I know I'm horrible about getting back with folks and stuff, but you know, if you got my number, bro, text me. And yeah, please pray for Soraya. I mean, things are going well. I just think that, you know, right now, you know, we're launching another business, and it just, you know, I've been haggling with the FDA and haggling with this group and that group and customs and all the rest of it because, you know, we're selling baby formula. We'll put a commercial and stuff out there. So I don't think I've been as supportive this time around as before, and I think it's causing, you know, me and Middle Earth were kind of talking through it, and he was helping me walk through some things a little bit. But if you're a praying person, pray that I can, at least for the home stretch, be a better support for Sori. Yeah, so that's important. All right, much love to all you beautiful people. Thank you very much for hanging out with your boy. I needed this. I missed you guys, so I appreciate it. Much love to all you beautiful people. Been out. Oh, love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America.